Hello, parents and colleagues. Welcome to another episode of Founder to Founder. My name is Felicia Wright, and in this episode, I traveled to Lakeland, Florida to interview Jennifer Palmer with Mobile Classroom Solutions. She is such a powerhouse, and I'm super excited that I got to meet her on my travels in Florida, and I know you're going to love her as well. Jennifer Palmer graduated from Bradley University in 2008, where she obtained her bachelor's degree in science and psychology. During this time, she was introduced to behavior modification for non-typical learners. While completing her graduate studies at Southern Illinois University, Jennifer gave birth to her beautiful son, Jaden. Jennifer has worked as a teacher and a behavior specialist in Polk County for nearly 10 years. She feels very passionate about providing persons with disabilities with high quality instruction and resources and believes that everyone deserves to be recognized for their innate abilities. Ms. Palmer obtained her Florida teacher certification from Polk County in 2017 and worked for Polk County schools for nearly 5 years before founding MCS. She developed a unique approach to learning with respect to growing needs of the populations that require diverse, non-traditional classroom settings. In her spare time, Jennifer enjoys art, music, traveling, serving in her sorority, and showing her son the world. She also currently serves as the advisory board chairman for MCS. Hello, families, and welcome to another episode of Founder to Founder, and we are here with Jennifer Palmer of Mobile Classroom Solutions here in Lakeland, Florida. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, I mean, this is a beautiful space. Like, I could see why your clients come here. Like, I just want to lay down and have a nap. But to get started, please tell us about you, your background, and how we got here.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm Jennifer Palmer. I was born in Chicago. I moved to Florida about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a family of educators, and at a very early age, I used to accompany my grandmother as she would be in her second grade classroom cleaning and grading papers, and things like that were fun. My friends and sisters will tell you she was always bossy. She was always trying to, teach us new things and trying to order us around and make sure that things were done a certain caliber, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I think the part of education is in the blood. But at the same time, I thought, education just doesn't make enough money. And I want to be able to have a career that's going to allow me to live so that I can do things. Fast forward, I decided, well, let's try nursing, and being RN. I enjoyed people, but it just wasn't my thing. I eventually ended up coming back to therapy. So I did a lot of work as an ABA line therapist, working in homes with children that had special needs. And this was in 2005 when a lot of insurance covered carriers were not providing coverage, and families were just learning about what the word autism meant, how they could get services. And I found myself having a lot of success. And I was able to work with some different behavior analysts that were starting pilot projects. They were writing grants and trying to help different towns to establish ABA programs. Okay. So I started in the home, doing home programs. Eventually I was offered a position in a school. My degree in psychology allowed me to be a support staff. That led me to go on to grad school. And in grad school, I studied to become a BCBA. Mothering became my priority my final year of grad school. And my advisor also decided to relocate. So with those two introductions and challenges to my life, I had to put my dreams on hold for a little bit.
Okay.
I moved to Florida and decided, well, since I can't work as a BCBA and work with children with special needs in the therapy fashion, why don't I pursue my special education degree? I mean, after all, you've been teaching for a long time, and we'll just do this for a little bit. And then once my son is old enough, I can always go back and pursue my dreams.
Can you define BCBA real quick?
BCBA is a board certified behavior analyst.
Okay,
and so these are people that typically are known to provide behavioral services to kids with special needs. Autism is probably one of the most prevalent demographics that is served, being that right now I think the rate of autism or children being diagnosed with autism is like 1 in 47 or
Wow.
42. It's a very common of the different disabilities that I have encountered in my time. And so I've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of kids in the home, in the school. Being a special education teacher here in Polk County, I had a lot of success. I was rated highly effective. In the classroom, we started with 9. Before the end of the year, we had 22.
Oh, wow.
And my principal was amazing. He's Dr. Henry is assistant superintendent of Polk County Schools now. He would come and bring me some of the most challenging kids, and they were able to find success. And when we were once we were able to establish some happiness, the kids started to excel. Their test scores started to excel. We were passing standardized tests where they didn't think ESE students would be able to. Or we were doing very well with our accelerated reader challenges and making points and being able to actually compete with their grade level peers. And for the first time ever, they were winning. And so they started just shooting through the ranks when it came to reading and AR and reading comprehension. COVID happened, and so that's really what brought the classroom to families' houses. And at that time, that's when the idea for the business started to come about.
Okay, before you get to that, I want to go back just a hair because you said something that was interesting. Once we were able to establish some happiness, what did that look like for you in the classroom?
Well, many of the students I worked with had been ostracized.
Okay.
They were not always invited to school-wide events, so assemblies. It was really challenging for even just to get them to specials. They were assigned to go to specials with their grade level peers, but in a classroom where we teach K through 5, that meant that we had to have a staff that was rotating out to the different grade levels because we had kids in 6 grade levels. So someone was always at a specials class or someone was always at lunch. And the school board's idea was that they could go and they could participate with their grade level class, but we needed to have an additional staff member that could be present.
Got it.
That presented challenges for the home situation in our home classroom because now we're short-staffed because we have one staff with 1 or 2 students that are in that grade level. And that strain back and forth eventually caused us to not be able to service those students in the classroom with their grade level peers as frequently as we would have liked. So it gave them an opportunity to compete with their grade level peers. They started participating in things. So they were winning awards. They were being called on the system when different children were being recognized for things, being invited to pizza parties, and just feeling that sense of belonging, the sense of that I can win. And once they started winning and they knew that they could, then they became more determined. So you saw the motivation rise. And often then once one child would earn things, then their peers would see it. And so now everyone wants that pizza party or everyone wants that ice cream social.
Yeah, I mean, from what you're saying and what I've experienced as well working in the public school, it's almost like with special education, there's not enough staff to completely give them all the services that they're looking for. And it's not like they're ostracized, but they're not engaged in the community activities of a school. And I think that actually hurts those children in those respects. So I've seen that as well. So I'm happy you pointed that out because I think it's important for parents to know that it's not so much of like they're not being included. It's just like staffing is a real big issue across the board. And then when you get into the niche of special education, it's even a bigger problem.
Yes, I would agree. I had some amazing staff. So I can say it really was not having good staff as much as having enough staff.
Yeah.
And I think also there were some schools that had more staff, and I'm not sure exactly, but there were some schools that would have a floater, a para that could help out from time to time. But there were some schools that I were at where we were so strapped, there were just not the same staffing needs. So often the school, I would try to work in schools that I felt needed me more, but then there were always the staffing issues. And then when I would go to schools that had more resources, they may have enough staff, but then there were other things that were going on. So
Yeah.
it definitely presented issues for us. And just for me as a teacher, I wanted to be effective. I wanted to make sure that the kids got what they needed. And so it's really hard just to be able to do your job even if you want to.
Yeah. And that's really, really tough. So can you tell us what was that transition like from being in the public school to building mobile classroom solutions? So, like, how did we get here?
I have always had to have a supplementary income to my teaching income. I'm a
Okay.
single mom, and one of the things that I have always learned to do is to use your brain and be smart. Because I did a lot of work with ABA and therapy and special needs, I've almost always had a family or so that I have worked with and tutored. So I started with the homeschool program of a little boy back in 2018 here in Florida.
Okay.
This is how I learned about Step Up for Students, which is our ESA, our educational spending account here in Florida. It allows families, if they withdraw their child from public school, to access funds. And those funds can be used for private education, home education, and different supplementary services and products. And so I learned about that, and it opened up the opportunity for me to be able to help other families. So this family had a student who had just not been successful in a lot of schools. Mom set up a classroom in her home, and she was looking for a teacher to come to her home to work with her son due to some behavioral things. And before long, we were able to set up a plan and a program for him. And once he became happy and he started realizing he could achieve and learn some things, those contingencies of reinforcement just set in place, and he really started to excel. So I worked with him for several years. I limited my tutoring because I worked full time.
Yeah.
But there was a part of me that thought, maybe I should think about figuring out how to do this, because not only am I seeing the kids make amazing gains in the home in a much shorter amount of time, but also I could set my schedule, I could set my rate to make sure that I was going to be able to at least pay my bills. It's like I don't need to travel to Japan every weekend, but I want to be able to provide for my son to have a good education. And if he wants piano lessons or to take an art class, I want to be able to introduce him to those things. And money is a tool. We need it. And often with the teacher salary here in Florida, I could pay bills, but that was about it. It didn't leave me enough to be able to live life and to be able to live with a little freedom. So the tutoring and homeschool programs, those allowed me some freedom and flexibility. When COVID came about, that brought me into people's houses. I set up with my students to meet them 3 times a week. I set up to make sure everyone had computers and devices so they could tune in. A lot of the families at that point were just like, just get on there and sing some songs and, let's just do some fun stuff just to kind of keep the sanity, keep them having some
engaged.
Yeah. And so we didn't do long things, but after that happened, they were ready for us to go right back to school in Florida. We were one of the first states. My doctor said, I just don't think that's going to be great for you.
Okay.
So we were back and forth about trying to find an e-learning job where I could meet with students virtually. I found it to be very effective, and I was able to still engage with students online. Like, listen, all you have to do is give me the right tools. I mean, I know how to turn a lesson into something amazing.
Yeah.
Kids learn things from video games all the time.
That is the truth. Got 3 of my own.
Or in social media and the internet. So we have to figure out a way how we can make things in learning engaging as well. So we just shorten the lessons. We respect kids' time. We give them something that's interactive where they have to move, where they have to perform some tasks. But we keep it short and simple. And we found that the kids were learning amazing things even through the computer. So before long, I decided to go ahead and take that jump. And it was still COVID, so I cleaned out my house. I had 2 rooms dedicated to homeschooling. And we just started welcoming more families as people found out that I was doing that. Before long, I had a pod of 5. So it was
amazing.
It was pretty sweet. It was pretty sweet. And I live across the street from a park, so we were able to do activities there, and then we would go to the park, and we would just meet for like 3 or 4 hours. It wasn't a long time,
Yeah.
but it was enough to teach them something, enough for them to socialize, and they were happy. They were happy, and it made me happy to be able to find a way to get out of some of the challenges that I was having in the school system as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one thing that I found like really interesting, and I think it'll be helpful for other educators to hear, is like when you're working for public school, you were pretty much just paying the bills. But then when you left, you were actually able to pay the bills and maybe some piano lessons and maybe some extras on the side. And I know a lot of teachers are afraid to leave, even though they have these great ideas. But it can be done. And it can be done in an effective way where you're happy as well as the kids are happy too. And you're fulfilling a need in a very specific niche. So I also want to talk to you about like the types of learners that you're servicing now. Because I think that's really interesting because there's all sorts of types of learners, but you service a lot of neurodivergent kids. So can you tell us more about that?
I can. A lot of the students that I work with are on the autism spectrum,
Yeah.
and they have some other comorbidity. I do have some students that really were challenged and they were expelled or they moved from school to school.
Okay.
Some of the students I work with also have emotional behavior disorders and or different social emotional things that have happened. We have some children that have been adopted. We have some children that come from families with different trauma, physical, mental abuse, things like that. So depending on the families, most of them the children are behind with respect to school, but they're able to learn and learn a lot faster in an environment where they're not feeling so pressured. They're not having to go by a test. They're not stuck in these strict, rigid deadlines. There's flexibility with attendance, right? Because sometimes they have appointments and mom needs to take them to counseling or needs to get them to the therapist. And if it's during school and they're in public school, then they're challenged with truancy and just different things. And to me, if my child is having a psychotic episode, hey, mom, I really thank you for keeping them home today.
Yeah.
I do realize the importance of school, but school's not everything. You definitely need to have that foundation of happiness, of mental health stability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because reading and math and all those things are important, but your personal being happy, and your social emotional well-being is so important. So a lot of what we do here, we work with the students with their social emotional strengths and weaknesses and try to help them to improve their weaknesses. As a trained behavior therapist, I truly believe that the environment, how you set up things, are important. So that's one of the reasons why you'll notice here we don't have a lot of desks.
Yeah.
And we do have a futon and we do have comfortable chairs so the children can relax if they need to. There are not a lot of learning tools on the wall. The things that are on the wall are things that the kids have been involved with or that they've selected. But I try to think about what traumas they have and to make sure that we don't have those stimuli present so they won't necessarily feel those traumas. But then I also try to let them decide what they want.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that you see here are things that they decided.
That's
They
their
wanted the
space.
glow in the dark. Right. They wanted the jungle room. They love the beanbag chairs. And so some of the things I'm like, well, I'm going to get rid of it. No, and I respect that for whatever it's worth. This is their space too. So I do allow them to give input as well as the parents. I do try to make sure that they're able to give some input.
Okay.
So, yeah, with that, and after we take care of that social emotional piece, the learning skyrockets. I mean, really, it's just they're happy, they feel safe, they know that they're going to be somewhere that's supported. They're not going to be ostracized for this or get in trouble for getting out of their seat, or there's rules about no talking or no going to the bathroom. We don't have that. Our rules here are treat people with kindness, show respect, be patient. Things that are going to teach them to be great human beings.
Yeah. That's so important in today's society. I think we get so wrapped up in like grades and what it looks like on paper, especially the education system. Like just from what I've seen as an educator myself, it's like what we look like on paper, but the important part is like the mental health of the child, and that's why I love what you do so much, because it's lost. I think it's completely lost at this point, and bringing it to the forefront is so important, and focusing on that, because then the learning can happen, and learning can happen anywhere, right? So if a parent came to you, can you what programs are available to them at this time? Like, so what kind of tell us about your programs?
So we provide homeschool services,
Okay.
tutoring, and educational consulting, and under those umbrellas are lots of different services.
Okay.
For our homeschooling, we offer a full-time option. So there are some families that come and use our center 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more condensed than public school. So the longest session is 9 to 1:30.
Okay, that's a good day.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's a good day. But in that, they're getting reading, language arts. They're probably getting some other kind of art. They're at snack time. They're having social time. They have an opportunity to do game board. Because we do board games. We do a lot of just social activities as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really have to plug that in, because if not, they'll all try to sit on their devices and they'll sit side by side.
Yeah.
But they don't interact. So we have I don't want to say mandatory, but highly recommended social
mandatory
time.
fun time. That's what we call it in the military. It's like mandatory fun time. Let's all go.
But what happens is, after a while, they do end up enjoying it, and they do become friends.
You just kind of
have to facilitate it at the beginning and really plug it in. Like, say hello, ask him how you're doing, ask him what did he do over the weekend.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of the social skills, I think, have been lost to electronic devices.
Yeah.
And then COVID also was a challenge. And then we also have a lot of neurodivergent students here that just don't really know what to say. So we try to make sure that we give them plenty of opportunities to practice. So nothing else, they come in, hi. Everybody's saying hi, and that's something. That's something.
Yeah, and I think this is an excellent place to practice that stuff. And the fact that it's like a gentle shove, it's good for them. Mm-hmm. Like, I always tell my kiddos, it's like, hey, just say hello, and then we can work out the rest later. So that's awesome. With your families, have you found, are a lot of them like self-pay, or do they utilize the ESA program in Florida? Like, what has that experience been like for you?
For most of the families that utilize the pod, so our pod are more consistent families that require a higher level of homeschool support. Those families, again, come 2, 3, 4 days a week.
Okay.
And we do the evaluation. We'll do annual testing. We take care of all of the requirements of the state in order to make sure that they are compliant. We also have some other families that take care of all that. They do their own evals, they'll do their own testing, or they have someone to do that. Perhaps they just want a little bit of instruction. So those families might just come once a week, and we consider those to be our tutoring families. Mm-hmm. Then you have educational consult. These are families that are just completely doing it on their own. They just come in and say, hey, can you manipulate this lesson plan, or what are some suggestions here or there? For most of our families that use the pod, they rely on the ESA. It is very much a big help to, I would say, 80% of our families. We do have some that private pay. I think that many of our families would private pay if they had to, but they might not utilize as much of the service. Mm-hmm. So what I've seen is they'll go down to consult, or instead of coming 5 days a week, they might only come 2 days a week if they were to have to pay out of pocket. So the ESAs allow the students to have a higher level of services, where families can still pay out of pocket, but now they're spending their money towards other lessons, and the ESA can take care of their bills here for the most part.
Okay. As a business owner, I've been talking to other founders in Florida, so I'm wondering, the ESA, utilizing that program and accessing those funds for families, how has that experience been like for you? Because it seems to be different for different microschooling founders.
Yes, well, I was a provider for Step Up, which is our ESE here in Florida. I've been since 2017.
Okay.
So
Long time.
yes, so and I that started with my homeschool family. At the time, I was just a sole provider and just working as an individual sole proprietorship. Um, Mobile Classroom Solutions was created and eventually birthed in 2021. During that time, every year things have changed. What I can say is it's definitely been extremely helpful. I think for a lot of families that are lower socioeconomic status, or a lot of minority families, or families that have multiple children, the scholarship is key because there are not a lot of families that just have one child. So if you're trying to finance multiple educations, it's been extremely helpful in providing families with options that way. Um, More recently, there are more options available, so it does allow more families to be able to take advantage of it. On the flip side, I will say that some families aren't used to paying a lot of money for education, and I have found that it is nice when you require families to put a little stake in it of their personal money, because then they tend to be a little more invested. So it's important to still require certain things of the families, because I know that there have been some places that haven't had as much success, because the families come from public school, and you have to work with them on understanding the difference of coming over to be a micro school parent, or being a homeschool parent. Like, yes, you can drop your child off, and yes, we will take care of a lot of the things for you, but you still have a lot of obligations, and you definitely have to be more involved. So we have a strong parental component here at Mobile Classroom Solutions. It is required. In fact, if the family says, well, I really don't believe in homework, or I don't believe in doing things outside, this is probably not the place, because this is a homeschool program. And a lot of what I believe is that the families have to be more involved in education.
Agreed.
So it's part of it is finding a great teacher and all those things, but the parent has to do their part. There's no educational system that's going to be successful without the parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I really think like educating children, it has to be a community effort. And I really do get that sense here of this being a community, because your parents, there's a lobby out front where parents can stay and participate in their children's learning. So I think that is so important. And I think that's actually how we're going to change the shape of education, coming down to these smaller micro schools. And by small, I mean, it could be up to 100 students, as long as like we are actively engaged and making decisions together as a team with the parents. So I like that you brought that up, because I think it's just so important. And at least me personally, I hope we see more and more of that.
Yes, I will tell you that leaving the public school, for me, it wasn't just about the money. The money was only a small part. My personal health, being able to choose clients that I know fit in line with my morals and values and how I feel about education. Because I want to be able to sleep at night too. And I am able to feel a lot better as a person, because I know that I'm working with families that care about what we're doing. They're going to go home. They're going to practice it. If Miss Palmer says we need to work on the SH sound, we're going to work on the SH sound, and it's just those simple things. Read a book, or spend 15 minutes a day working on those little bitty things, because when that child comes back in and they're feeling more confident and they know mom and dad have their backing, it makes your day better as an educator, and it makes your job just a little bit lighter. So it's that whole piece too of having that completion to me. And so here I can require those things. I can require that families be involved. I can look at the background and make sure that it's a child that I know I could serve. And that's what a lot of what we try to do here is try to make sure. And if there's someone that doesn't fit, or there's a family that feels like they need other options, I have also provided them with consult and sent them in the direction of where they need to go. I mean, after all, it's about the child.
It truly is. I mean, with my micro school, like if it wasn't a good fit, I would always say like, we're just going to send you off with love in this direction. Go try this micro school, because we're not the right fit for you. Out of your parental agreement, I'm just curious, like, what policies do you have in there or at least one policy that you have in there that you feel like helps really create the community of Mobile Classroom Solutions?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Well, I guess I just kind of list some expectations,
Okay.
and then the big thing is just they drop their kids off, they pick their kids up, in the waiting room in there. Sometimes the parents will talk with each other, so that's
nice.
something that's really cool. And I ask them for permission to share all the time. Because they want to know how their kids are doing.
Yes.
And we take a lot of photos and things like that. And so often it's just like, okay, what's my child doing? But what's he doing with his friend in the photo? And so just that part, I think families coming in and feeling more hope and more joy, they are willing to share, because it's not, oh, I've got this agenda with all this red ink and this phone call and that phone call where my child's being picked up early. It's like, wow, we open the door and he runs up the stairs to class, and he can't say a word, but we know that he's happy because he's running up the stairs to class. Or, another student comes skipping in and she's, Miss Jennifer. You'll have different things that the students do. And I think as they become happy, the parents are just more willing to be on board. So it does take some work. I mean, I do have to keep the communication open.
Yeah.
And I try to make sure that the parents know that I know their children, what they need. But I also take time to get to know the parents too.
Yeah.
I've seen every mother cry just about that I've served. Every single one. At some point, some sense of overwhelmingness, or them now having hope and being able to say, I felt like this, or I thought this way at one time. And, I'm so happy to see what's happened. So those are the things. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. But yeah, those are the things that definitely help to build the community. I think when people are happy, they're willing to go over backwards. So, yeah. And then we do events here. Sometimes, like, we'll have our October Halloween event coming up and things like that. So the families will come, parents will volunteer, and it gives them an opportunity just to get to know each other. I mean, a lot of them come here like, my kid doesn't have friends. I don't have friends. People are looking at us crazy because my child had a meltdown, because of tantrums in Walmart or just different things. So them having that common bond and being able to relate in different ways too. It's really what and I let them know, like, I want you guys to be able to, you will find community here. We are a family. I state those things so that people can start to feel that.
Welcome.
Yes.
So, one last question. What is on the horizon for mobile classroom solutions? Like, where do you see this going? Do you want to expand? Like, where are we going?
Well, I would love to expand. The one challenge is finding staff that I think is going to understand the mission and be able to be dedicated. There have been some wonderful people to come by. We do have some people that come in that provide like part-time services. Okay. Our students receive music from a music therapist. They receive art lessons from Trado's Art Studio, world-renowned artists. They've done work with a lot of different amazing companies in the area, including Disney. And then we also work with an ABA clinic, Holiday Services, and they actually send over the music therapist from Whole Steps. Her name is Jillian, and then we've got Miss Tyler, who is a registered behavior technician, and she comes and does social skills. So I do have some providers that come in a little bit. I hope to be able to have someone full time. Would love to expand. Right now, I mean, this year we have expanded. In previous years, I had one pod, and this year we have two. We've got an elementary that comes in the afternoon from 12 to 3, and then we've got our morning crew, which is our high school, middle school crew, and they're here from 9 to 1. Okay. So, but many years down the road, I hope to be able to, us to have a standalone spot. I would love to be able to have an area where the children could go and play, to do a garden. Right now, we travel to another Microschool for our gardening class and for PE. But to be able to have some of those things facilitated in one place would be awesome.
Oh, I think it's coming, because this is an amazing Microschool, and you're an amazing person. And I have to say thank you for everything that you do, because I know sometimes we don't hear it enough, but what you're doing is amazing work, and this community is, I'm sure they're grateful to have you, because I know I would if I was in your community too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So if you can you share with the listeners like where they can find you and all the things about your Microschool and you?
Yes, yes. Well, I'm Jennifer Palmer. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm also on Facebook is probably the best place to find us. I'm at mobileclassroomsolutions.com, so you can check us out on our website. Our social media is probably the best place to check out what's going on with respect to what's current. We try to upload videos that have samples of the children's work, as well as from time to time, we put out educational videos to kind of help families that are navigating through the process. We have an upcoming homeschool expo. First time ever in Polk County. Should be an amazing experience. We're trying to gather a bunch of homeschool providers all together in one place, so you're not having to drive here and schedule this and schedule that. We'll be in one spot. You come and check us out.
Yeah.
There's so many different types of homeschooling, different types of programs, and I tell people all the time, there's so much freedom in homeschooling. I mean, you can find a class for any interest, and so our idea was just to kind of bring everything to one place. So to be in Winter Haven on October 19th from 11 to 2 p.m. at Central Park, which is downtown Winter Haven. We'll have food trucks. There'll be different kids activities. We have a DJ and a host, and they're going to make sure that our families have a great time. So we are really excited, and we hope to have people to come out and to network with us, to hang out with the kids, and just to show Polk County how amazing homeschooling can be, that there's so much freedom, love, and joy associated with it.
Awesome. So definitely check that out. And I'll put the link to all that stuff in the description of wherever you're watching this. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us and sharing your Microschool with us.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for this opportunity.
Of course. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.